Hi, this is Ken Caldwell, Dean of the School of Business Administration at University of Houston, Victoria. And I'm joined today by one of our professors in our strategic management department, Dr. Ron Salazar. Dr. Salazar focuses on helping students become better business leaders. He's been a university professor and a consultant on strategic technology management for a number of high-performing organizations. Dr. Salazar also co-founded the nation's second largest independently held security monitoring company, serving as its chief operating officer. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Ken. It's very nice to be with you.
Excellent. Well, we're going to jump right in. We have a very topical discussion today, and particularly since you and I are meeting via Zoom, like everyone else in the country, because of our situation with the pandemic. So I'm wondering if you can tackle the broad question of how will our economy be different in the post-COVID-19 era?
I think that that's a question that occupies a lot of the thinking in our nation today. My response to that is that our economy will be different in many ways, in fact. Two of the most important factors to understanding the differences we can expect are those that are economic and those that are technological. First, economic instability will be pervasive due to an upcoming global liquidity crisis on the horizon. As you know, the US government spending now exceeds 24% of GDP, and that level is unsustainable. This instability will take the form of a greater likelihood of debt defaults around the globe. The problem in the US will be most visible and immediate in terms of commercial and residential loan defaults. Secondly, technologies for work have diffused in important ways that will impact travel, transportation costs, and decision cycle times. This will allow the US to leap forward competitively in the global marketplace because our communications at the end of this will be much more efficient and advanced than that of lesser developed countries. And finally, of course, changes in technologies for transportation and storage brought about by the demand shifts created by COVID will further undermine brick and mortar retailing. The Amazon effect will result in retailers seeking to compete to meet rapid delivery demands of the nation's consumers. Those are three important ways that COVID will affect us in the future, Ken.
So one of the things that I'm seeing, Ron, where I live, is a lot of restaurants are closing down, particularly the smaller individual restaurants. How do you see that changing? Is the restaurant and hospitality industry going to be fundamentally different, or are we going to go back to the way things were at some point?
I think that we will return to the way things were in the long run. However, understanding why restaurants, particularly restaurants with one or two units, have failed or are failing is important understanding the long-term implications. As you know, one of the things we teach our students is to use as little equity capital as possible and attempt to use debt financing to finance operations. Well, many restaurants owners have followed that advice to their detriment. The restaurants are over leveraged with insufficient operating capital to sustain the rents without top line that they can live with. The global restaurant supplier, Cisco Foods, was off 70% at the beginning of this crisis. That'll give you some insight into how deep the cuts are, and the small chains are just incapable of sustaining those size losses for this long a period of time.
Yeah, and yet I was talking to our local operator, Chick-fil-A, today, and they are having record sales during this. So it's clear that there are going to be winners and losers. And you mentioned some of the new technology companies. Again, we're speaking on Zoom. We know how much they've grown, and other technology companies that have really been able to take advantage of this and are going to be the winners in this space. What are some other sort of surprising winners that you think are going to come out of this? What sort of industries are really going to benefit from this from what we're facing right now?
Well, you mentioned a business operation that I think deserves being followed up on. Chick-fil-A has an excellent value proposition, excellent business model, but more than that, what Chick-fil-A has is the ability and the willingness to be agile in these times. I don't know if you've noticed, but Chick-fil-A has added lanes to its operation. It's added iPad order taking. It's added streamlined kitchen operations, and it has been run in such a way that it had ready access to capital, debt capital needed to finance it through this time of operation. Further, if you think about it, Chick-fil-A has a competitive advantage over others because they're providing reasonably healthy food fast. That's very difficult to do, but they've done it exceedingly well. As far as who the winners are, the winners will also be those retail operations that are able to drive down transportation costs and decision cycle times. If they can get the product out, they're going to make money, and if they can't, they simply will not be able to survive in the coming months.
So I'm going to ask you one other question that may be kind of self-serving. As you know, my background is in entrepreneurship, and I'm very interested in growing the entrepreneurial ecosystem, of course, worldwide, but certainly here in our local area. I'm wondering what you think the government can do to help local small businesses weather this. As you say, they often don't have the resources, they're not able to get the debt financing that larger corporations are able to do. And we're seeing small businesses close in record numbers. What can we do to help them?
Well, Ken, in one sense, the government's done a very good job addressing small businesses, and another not so good. The Small Business Administration has many more resources at its disposal than it has successfully made available to small businesses. There are lots of programs, but the small business owners are so diffuse that they really don't have access to SBA funding the way that they ought to. SBA funding is readily available, but small businesses simply don't have the time or resources to keep up with that technology. And since the window of opportunity is closing, I don't see much changing over the next year or two.
Interesting. Well, these are certainly interesting times, Ron, and I really appreciate your wide-ranging opinions on what's going to happen next. I think a lot of us are wondering. So you've provided a very interesting perspective for us. Thank you very much for your time today.